I've seen it throughout the ages for fighting games where a character will show up into a series that they do not belong in. A fighting game developer may get the opportunity to work with another company and look at those characters to add within its roster, and this leads to the guest character. These characters can make or break a fighting game with either how well they're actually made and done, or by how well they're received by the community. With some games, you can create one of the most beautiful FGC moments where it feels like a clash of cultures and one of the best moments of all time. Or it can create chaos or feel like that the developers are pandering to certain sponsors and doesn't really care about its fan base. And then it feels like it's lost its integrity and it's no longer grounded. I want to cover this topic as there's been a conversation for the past week or so, as the recent announcement for Guilty Gear Strive sparked this debate out of nowhere where people are wondering who the hell is it going to be and why the hell is it a guest character. I plan on representing arguments for why guest characters are great and then for why they're bad and they ruin the feel of the game. At the end, I'll go over my own opinion on it, and I'll be honest, I don't want to sound like a shout, but I'm for guest characters. But let's get started by looking into why guest characters are ruining fighting games. One main issue with a guest character is that they take up slots for characters that would have shown up in previous games. In Guilty Gear Strive, there's still so many characters that they can implement into the game itself, like Zappa for example. And this is one that people have been wanting for a while, so looking at the older games, there's still many characters you can implement into modern Strive that people really want to play. And sadly, that slot is taken up by a guest character that can be anyone from anything. It might not generate any hype whatsoever. And it kind of steps in the way of the creative vision of new characters as well, like Yujiro Hanma and Tekken 8. Don't get me wrong, I love Baki, I'm a massive fan of it. And Yujiro I think would be a fantastic pick for Tekken, I think he'd fit perfectly, but I don't really have faith in the devs when it comes to some of the facial animations. And it does take up slots from characters in the past and new ones that they could be developing for the next game. Point being, I feel like you could be doing a lot more with your roster that's already missing. Heihachi was DLC for Christ's sake. It can ruin the integrity of the game. What do I mean by this? Sometimes adapting a guest character isn't just adapting their move list or how they fight, it's sometimes just adapting how they actually play from their game. And in Tekken 7, this created one of the most unbalanced characters that were top tier from the start to finish, being Akuma. Akuma was ridiculous, being able to have a low that was a launcher, a mid that was super safe in a launcher, and a DP, because they want him to play like Street Fighter. Akuma in my mind was well adapted. He really strikes the blend of Tekken and Street Fighter in the same game. However, he ruined the competitive integrity for the game because it wasn't just fighting a top tier, it's fighting a top tier with his own goddamn kit. You didn't have anything like the rest of the roster. He was genuinely cheating in a lot of these scenarios. And it gets even worse when you go to Tekken 8 and you look at Clive. Clive is just so well adapted, he's playing a single player fighting game at points. You can feel like it can ruin the integrity of the game, as in they're adapted so well that it doesn't even feel like they're playing the same game. It's very awkward and it's weird, and managing that type of balancing can ruin the feel for your players. I think this ruined Tekken 7 and 8. 8 maybe, 7 not so much. It can clash with a game's art style. Now this is a huge deal. Game is to look a certain way. Whenever you add a foreign element into that, it can make it look so bizarre and so weird. And visually, it can be a huge problem, as people hopping into your game will just get confused and then just pick the character that looks funny, aka that guest character, and get that as their main impression from your game. And that's a huge issue, if I'm honest. That is a huge issue. I think the only time I saw a game where it adapted the other character's art style into their game very well was probably Soul Calibur 4. Being able to take Star Wars characters based off of the comics or the live action and turn that into a 3D model that convinces me it's Star Wars and they fit in Soul Calibur is beyond me. Some of the other times it can be weird and it can just be so off-putting. It can feel out of touch and feel like that they're pandering to sponsors, and the best example you have to go to every time would be Ronaldo. Ronaldo is the weirdest pick for Fatal Fury. Never mind the fact that Ronaldo just didn't care where he was when he was filming the thing for his character trailer reveal, or the fact that Ronaldo probably couldn't give a damn about the FGC, or that you could heavily tell this was by the sponsor. sponsors. None of the players really asked for this. It's super weird because Ronaldo, a real life person, is now canon in the world of Fatal Fury. A game that I hold really dearly into my heart has been kinda ruined with its modern iteration. I went through a honeymoon period where it's like, oh no, this game is still great and all that type of stuff. But then I was like, the balance is awful. It feels like it's made for competitive slop, and that's the first time I've ever said that in my life. The meta's already been decided, and you've got a person who has some nasty allegations against them. All I'm gonna say is, guys, did you know that Ronaldo spent $375,000 in a hotel? Search this up. Ronaldo, $375,000. It can create fatigue for that guest character. When the guest character shows up everywhere, it creates this fatigue feeling, like you're sick of seeing him, like, oh my god. Most players, that might be Terry Bungus. Now, I love Terry Bungus. Terry Bogard is one of my absolute favorites. He's like the only show I enjoy playing. For me, that was 2B. Seeing 2B in Soul Calibur and Grand Blue and then whatever the hell that they wanted to put her in, it gave me genuine fatigue. I was like, ugh, 2B again? 2B again? Our game came out like 10 years ago, man. 2B again? And this might be a me issue. I couldn't get into Nier. I tried playing it like for 3 hours and I didn't get the appeal. I like action slashers and the game's story didn't feel that deep. I'm sorry. So those were reasons why fighting games shouldn't have guest characters, because without a doubt, those are very valid reasons. But let's get into why having a guest character in the fighting game is a good thing. It can create some of the best moments that the FGC will remember. I think the best example of this was going to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, where they have Ryu, Ken, Terry, and Kazuya. This was an insane moment as you have 3 of the main protagonists meeting up in a fighting game for the first time. Don't get me wrong, these guys have all clashed in their separate altercations, but here, they were all together in the same game, which was beyond rare. This was awesome to see in a fighting game moment. I remember popping the hell off when Kazuya came out, and then just seeing all these faces, or that Saltaria and all that, it was such a good moment. It's a shame Smash Bros players don't feel the same about that, but as a fighting game member, this was mine. This was my moment. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. Next point, it can create good traction for the game. I think the best examples of this were Soul Calibur 4 and of course Lucy and Guilty Gear Strive. When Lucy appeared in Guilty Gear Strive, it caused a lot of traction with people checking out the game. I think the player count went to a pretty high number that day. And then Soul Calibur 4, I don't need to say anything about Soul Calibur 4. Soul Calibur 4 was one of those games where most nerds knew about it. It was even something like only fighting game players knew about Soul Calibur 4. Most knew, because it had goddamn Darth Vader and Yoda. And for some reason, they fitted that game insanely well and was really fun to play, and it didn't feel like they ruined the integrity or the vibe of the game. I mean, this was when Soul Calibur was getting a little bit BS with its stuff, but it was awesome. It was certainly an awesome thing, and I remember playing the hell out of it as a kid. They didn't ruin the competitive integrity of the game because they were banned in competitive play, as Yoda was only playable on Xbox and Darth Vader was only playable on PlayStation. Fair enough. When it is done right, it allows fans to get involved in the FGC. And without a doubt, the best example of this was one of the best Akuma players from Street Fighter coming over to Tekken, as Akuma wasn't in Street Fighter 5. He disliked Street Fighter 5 at the time. And seeing his boy in Tekken 7 fully adapted from his Street Fighter 4 appearance made him compete with some of the best in the Tekken scene and stood out like a goddamn champion. This was one of my favourite moments. Don't get me wrong, Akuma ruined the game in terms of competitive integrity, but my goodness, was this a moment to behold as other fighting games were clashing more and playing together. In my personal opinion, the best type of guest character is a fighting game character from another fighting game, because you create moments like this. This was by far one of my favourite times to be around the fighting game community. And last point, I'm not too sure about this one. It could have happened either or, but it can lead to some of the best fighting games ever. Marvel vs. Capcom isn't exactly a, in-house project. Marvel's involved, and going back to the days of early old, you had Akuma and X-Men the fighting game. There was a fighting game based solely on X-Men with the sprites made by Capcom, as they got the rights to make a fighting game. And with Akuma being in that game, maybe that allowed them to kind of, nudge and go like, we should do a Streetman cross X-Men. And then nudge, we should do a Marvel versus, Capcom. Could have led to one of the best fighting game series ever being made, being Marvel vs. Capcom. So in this case, a guest character was important for one of the biggest crossovers that we ever got. So you can see why I'm kinda on the side for guest characters specifically for this. In the end, there's good arguments to be made for and against guest characters, but it's time to address my opinion. I think guest characters for the most part are completely fine in fighting games. Like, again, when it's a clash of series, the FGC gets involved with everything it possibly can. When it's a clash and it feels like two titans are against each other. Again, Akuma and Tekken 7, the Mayan Chun-Li thing, everybody was talking about that in Fatal Fury. When it came to Ronaldo, nobody was talking about it after he launched. You get what I'm saying? And again, my favourite moment of this was Akuma and Geese in the same series as Kazuya and Heihachi and Jin and all that. It was insanity to watch. That was my FGC moment for sure. Watching these big bads from the 2D plane coming over to the 3D plane, and they're super fun to play, they're super fun to watch, and they're well adapted. Competitively strong, but fun to watch and play. It was awesome. It created great moments that I forever remember, man. Now, I know I sound like I'm a shell, and I completely get it. If you want to call me a shell, go ahead. I'll fucking take it on the chin. I don't see a problem with guest characters in fighting games most of the time. Even if it's a character I don't care about, like Lucy, for example, in Guilty Gear Strive, I just go like, oh, that's neat, and then I don't care. I move on. The community likes it. Some members will play her. I move on. I've got my main. Most guest characters tend to exist very harmlessly. They don't really do anything to you or me, and it doesn't matter, they're just there in the roster. The best example of my argument being wrong is Ronaldo. It's just Ronaldo without a doubt. Like, not many of the FGC care, not many of the FGC actually picked him up, and the only thing he was good for were memes on day one, and that was about it. And I won't get into, you know, he's not a good person. It strikes me as fake when you add a character like this and you're just appeasing sponsors. That's the only thing I can think of. Hopefully this doesn't get me blacklisted from SNK projects that I'd actually be interested in, but damn. Yeah, it sucks when you get guest characters lists. It feels like they don't care about you, they don't care about the FGC. It's all about appeasing a goal, appeasing a numbers, that type of thing. And they actually care about doing a good guest character. For example, Chun-Li, they had the Mayan Chun-Li, it was awesome. Oh, it felt like a clash of the best women from fighting games. It was insane. And they had Kenshiro, an anime that came out like 50 years ago, don't get me wrong. I love Fist of the North Star, but this is a random pick, and its remake is okay. The anime remake is okay. They did this because the people that are sponsors are probably old heads and love this stuff, and most new generation couldn't give a damn. That is it on the topic of guest characters. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to like, hype, sub, and tell me what you think about guest characters. Do you think they're good, bad, and is there any guest character that you absolutely love that stuck with you? But that's it from me, Patriarch Panda, signing out, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!